Now, when the group is working this level, the group will also often have the subgroup that's horrified about the sadism, yeah, and sick to its stomach, and doesn't want to be in a group that does this, etc. Okay. Now, that is also a very important subgroup, because it's the subgroup that is, in effect, staying related to people as people. Because when we're in the sadistic subgroup, all people are objects. They aren't people anymore. And it's often very useful when the group can hold both sides of it. And the group will usually make repeated explorations at this level, which means different people can explore different sides of themselves at different times. So it's very useful to be able to explore holding the sense of the people as people. And ultimately, when those subgroups integrate, the subgroup that's horrified and the subgroup that's exploring the sadism, ultimately when they integrate, there's a sense of compassion for understanding the challenges of being a human being and how hard it is for us as human beings, that we both care about the people and we still have, as human beings, the sadistic impulses and the compassion for how hard it is to live with those human realities. So that's the level of integration down when both levels of the subgrouping can integrate. Now, that then frees the group to move into the habitual roles that maintain the fight patterns. And the prototypic is one up, one down. And people start to explore. Often you'll have a subgroup exploring what it's like to go one up and feel smarter than the group, and I know more than the group, etc. And also, then we'll get the subgroup exploring what it's like to go one down and feeling bad about myself, like I can never keep up, etc. And exploring those in a subgroup so that the group starts to be able to name the roles that then govern their experiences and to start to be able to see what is the world like when one's living in a personalized role that's either habitually one up or one down. And how the world gets colored by the roles that we live in a way that starts to weaken enough of the role locks that the group can work together much more member to member, peer to peer. Now, that is really preparing the group to be able to do the work with the authority issue and the barometric event, the crisis of hatred, the resistance to change defenses, or the role locks with the leader, on using all of those as equivalent, talking about the same issue, which is the group then is free enough of its role locks with each other to band together to explore the hatred of the leader. And the group needs the banding together to do it, because the group needs the security of the group to take on the leader. And the work of exploring the hatred of the leader is really ultimately going to get to the real belief that the only thing that's wrong with this group or this world is the leader. And if we got rid of this leader, we would actually be just fine, thank you very much. And the group is doing this after having established the reality testing and all the phases that came before. So the group is exploring without acting it out. Okay, very, very important. For any of you who have ever done Tavistock training, often that level of virulence that surfaces in the authority issue gets acted out in the Tavistock group. So Tavistock groups have stories of throwing chairs out the window and carrying the leader out the door, etc. Now, all of that gets explored in an SCT group, because by the time we get to the authority issue level of hatred, the group really knows how to contain, explore, and subgrouping, and explore all of the experience, which actually is much safer, because then the group is free to go anywhere. And anywhere with the exploring the hatred of the leader includes the real paranoia that the leader's out to get the group, that the leader's manipulating the group, that the leader can absolutely not be trusted. And the group ultimately, and the group will have all kinds of images and fantasies about that. When the group is at that level, will have things like the fantasy the group's exploring is tying the leader in the middle of the floor and roasting the leader and breaking off the limbs of the leader and passing them around for the group to eat, which has all of the historical images involved in it that come up out of the group's experience. So the group, in a way, is taking their own authority by ingesting the leader. And the group gets freer and freer to have more of the virulent level of the group's experience, contained in the subgrouping and contained in exploring. And then there's a sense of the experience cresting, and the group feels relieved. And the group actually then feels enormously grateful to the leader for containing the process. And the group, at that point, starts to be able to take their own authority. And the eye contact pattern shifts from one eye on the leader to much more involvement with the group, because the group is no longer preoccupied with the leader. And the group is starting to recognize that the things they hate in the leader are the things they hate in themselves. And the group starts to get a greater acceptance of themselves and ultimately of their leader. So that the group then gets freed to make the shift from the externalization and the blame into the taking one's own authority with oneself and as a member. And shifts in the energy, then shifts to the intimacy phase. And the intimacy phase, the work is primarily with other members. The issues have to do with closeness and distance. They have to do with separation and individuation. The two basic underlying subgroups that have to be explored in the intimacy phase are enchantment and disenchantment. And the enchanted subgroup is the subgroup that gives voice to that if we could only stay together as a group forever, the world would be fine. And maybe we could go off on a deserted island and there would be no other people except us, because we know how to be with each other, and how we be is wonderful, and it couldn't be any better than this. And the group subgroups that level of experience. And then after a little while, suddenly there'll be a voice in the group saying, I don't think I want to live on that island. Okay. And the other side is launched. And the other side has all of the despair and alienation, and the sense that really you can't count on anybody in the world. You are really just here yourself as an alien living in outer space, and all of that stuff about living on the island together that's for the birds. It doesn't really exist. Or maybe it exists for others, but it'll never exist for me. Okay. So you get the two sides of the split in human experience that ultimately have to be integrated, just like the authority phase is integrating love and hate. And the intimacy phase ultimately is integrating the challenges in separation, individuation, how to be able to be one's full self with all of one's yearning for human contact, and also with all of one who wants to be free to be oneself, separate from others. So all of the separation, individuation conflicts. And in later phase groups, there's a lot of work done in the subgrouping around the early attachment issues that fuel the intimacy roles, or role-locks, really. And I'm galloping you guys through this, but let me just gallop you through the last bit. Then the next phase, the switch from the intimacy to the integration phase, is the phase where the group is really free to revisit any of its phases, to work with conflicts as they arise in the group, and also to work with the primary challenge of the group has now gained access to itself, how to use what it knows in role, goal, and context. And that means using one's emotional knowledge, using one's common sense, taking up one's member role. And the challenges to that are the tendency to go legalistic, or the tendency to, in a way, get lost in one's person without a context, without being able to be a member. So one gets the pull to the gratification of the personal experience without translating the experience into context. And that is often the work of the work phase.